My name is Campbell, and I'm 32 years old. When my sister Lisa told me she was getting married, I was thrilled for her. What I never expected was that our parents would deliver an ultimatum that would change everything. If your brother's not invited, we're not coming either. After 19 years of watching them defend my brother while he bullied us both, this was the final straw that broke our family apart. Before I dive into this story, let me know where you're watching from in the comments, and hit that like and subscribe button if you've ever had to stand up to family for what's right. Growing up in our suburban Seattle home, there were three of us kids: my older brother Ethan, who's 34 now, my younger sister Lisa, who just turned 30, and me sandwiched in the middle. From my earliest memories, our family had a clear hierarchy that none of us ever questioned until we were much older. My parents, Jack and Patricia, made no secret of their favoritism toward Ethan. As the firstborn son, Ethan could do no wrong in their eyes. He was the golden child, athletic, charming to adults, and the spitting image of our father. What my parents never seemed to notice, or chose to ignore, was how differently Ethan behaved when they weren't looking. Behind closed doors, he was a different person entirely, especially toward Lisa. It started with small things when we were young. Ethan would take Lisa's toys and break them accidentally. He'd pinch her under the table during family dinners and then smile innocently when she cried out. When Lisa would try to tell our parents, Ethan would put on his angel face, and my parents would scold her for making up stories about her brother. "Lisa, stop trying to get your brother in trouble," my mom would say with that disappointed look that made Lisa shrink into herself. I noticed it all. Being only 2 years younger than Ethan, I wasn't as frequent a target, but I wasn't immune either. When I'd try to defend Lisa, Ethan would wait until we were alone and make me pay for it later. And if I told my parents about that, I'd get the same dismissive response: "Boys will be boys. You need to toughen up, Campbell." What I remember most about those early years was how Lisa and I formed our own alliance. While Ethan was out playing sports with Dad or being doted on by Mom, Lisa and I would hide away in our shared playroom, creating our own world where we felt safe. Even at 8 years old, I felt protective of my 6-year-old sister, who was smart, creative, and unfailingly kind, despite how she was treated at home. Lisa was the type of kid who excelled at school without even trying. By 3rd grade, she was reading at a high school level and winning science fairs with projects she designed herself. But no matter what she achieved, it never seemed to measure up to Ethan making the junior varsity football team or scoring the winning goal in soccer. When Lisa brought home straight A's, Mom would glance at her report card and say, "That's nice, honey," before turning her attention back to whatever Ethan was doing. When Ethan brought home C's and D's with a single B, there would be celebrations and treats because he had tried his best. I remember one particular day when I was 10. Lisa had come home crying because Ethan had told everyone at school that she still wet the bed, which wasn't true. When she tried to tell our parents, Dad laughed and said, "That's just how siblings are, sweetheart. You need to learn to take a joke." That night, I found Lisa hiding in our closet, tears streaming down her face. "Why do they always take his side?" she asked me. I didn't have an answer then. I just hugged her and promised that I would always believe her. This pattern continued and deepened as we grew. By the time I entered middle school, I had developed a clear understanding of the family dynamics. Ethan was the star, my parents were his adoring fans, and Lisa and I were just background characters in the Ethan show. The more I tried to protect Lisa, the more I found myself in trouble with my parents for causing problems. When I was 12, I finally stood up to Ethan after he pushed Lisa down the stairs. She sprained her wrist, and Ethan claimed it was an accident. I knew better. I had seen him do it. When I confronted him in front of our parents, telling them what I'd seen, I was the one who got grounded for making accusations and trying to create family drama. That night, my mom came to my room and sat on the edge of my bed. I thought maybe finally she was going to listen to me. Instead, she said, "Campbell, you need to understand that family loyalty is everything. Your brother isn't perfect, but he's family. These accusations need to stop." It was in that moment I realized that in my parents' eyes, family loyalty only flowed in one direction toward Ethan. Lisa and I were expected to be loyal to him, but he was never expected to treat us with even basic respect, let alone loyalty. By the time Lisa reached middle school, she had developed coping mechanisms. She became quieter at home, saving her voice and enthusiasm for school and her few close friends. She poured herself into academics and art, creating beautiful paintings that depicted peaceful, serene landscapes, the exact opposite of the emotional turbulence at home. I noticed how she would flinch whenever Ethan entered a room, how she would make herself physically smaller, as if trying to disappear. The more Lisa withdrew, the more I tried to stand in the gap between her and Ethan. I couldn't stop the favoritism, but I could at least try to shield her from the worst of Ethan's behavior. And despite everything, Lisa continued to shine. Her teachers adored her, she won regional art competitions, and she maintained perfect grades. I was so proud of her resilience, even as I worried about the cost to her spirit. My parents remained oblivious to the damage they were causing, or perhaps they simply didn't care. Their world revolved around Ethan, and Lisa and I were just satellites expected to stay in our assigned orbits. Little did they know that their behavior was planting the seeds for a complete family rupture that would bloom years later. As we entered our teenage years, the dynamic shifted in ways that made life even harder for Lisa. Ethan's bullying evolved from childish taunts and physical intimidation to something more calculated and psychologically damaging. He was smart enough to know exactly where to hit to cause the most pain, and he did it with a precision that was terrifying. When Lisa was 14, she was selected to perform a piano solo at the school's winter concert. She had been practicing for months, and it was a huge honor. The night of the performance, Ethan, then 18, told her just before she went on stage that he had overheard her music teacher saying they only chose her because the original performer got sick, and that the teacher was worried Lisa would embarrass the school. It was a complete lie, but it devastated Lisa. She stumbled through her performance, her hands shaking so badly she missed several notes. Afterward, rather than comforting her, our mother said, "Well, I guess you should have practiced more." I found Lisa vomiting in the bathroom from anxiety, and when I confronted Ethan later, he just laughed and said, "She needs to toughen up if she wants to perform in public." I reported this incident to our parents, and their response was to tell me to stop creating drama on Lisa's big night. It was as if we lived in parallel universes, the one where Ethan was a loving, supportive brother, and the reality where he systematically broke down his sister's confidence piece by piece. Another particularly cruel incident occurred during Lisa's sophomore year of high school. She had spent weeks working on a science project that was not only worth 40% of her grade, but was also being entered in a state competition that offered scholarship money to winners. The night before it was due, Ethan accidentally spilled soda all over her display board and research papers. Years of experience told me there was nothing accidental about it. Lisa was destroyed. She spent the entire night redoing what she could, but the damage was too extensive. She still turned in a project, but it was a shadow of her original work. When she tried to explain to her teacher what happened, she broke down crying in class. The teacher gave her an extension, but the competition deadline couldn't be moved. When I confronted Ethan about it, he said, "She gets enough attention for being the smart one. It's pathetic how everyone thinks she's so perfect." The jealousy in his voice was palpable, but when I suggested to my parents that Ethan was jealous of Lisa's academic success, they looked at me like I had suggested the moon was made of cheese. "Your brother has nothing to be jealous of," my father said sternly. "He's going to state on a football scholarship. Lisa's little science projects aren't exactly in the same league." That was how they always framed it. Ethan's achievements were real and important, while Lisa's were cute hobbies at best. It didn't matter that Lisa's little science projects were winning regional awards or that she was being recruited by top universities. In our household, throwing a ball well would always trump academic excellence. By the time Lisa turned 16, the constant undermining had taken a visible toll. She developed anxiety so severe she sometimes had panic attacks before school. She lost weight, had trouble sleeping, and became increasingly withdrawn. Our parents attributed this to teenage girl drama and suggested she might need to see a therapist to deal with her sensitivity issues. The irony was painful. They recognized she needed help, but completely misidentified the cause of her suffering. The problem wasn't Lisa's sensitivity, it was that she lived in an environment where she was constantly walking on eggshells, never knowing when her brother would undermine her or her parents would dismiss her feelings. I became Lisa's main confidant. When she couldn't sleep, she would text me, and we'd meet in the kitchen for late-night talks over hot chocolate. I was attending community college nearby, so I was still living at home and able to provide some buffer between her and the rest of the family. During those midnight conversations, Lisa shared her dreams of going to college far away, somewhere Ethan's shadow couldn't reach. "I just want to breathe, Campbell," she told me one night, tears streaming down her face. I feel like I've been holding my breath for years. When it came time for Lisa to apply for colleges, she only looked at schools at least 1,000 miles away. She was accepted to several prestigious universities, including her dream school in Massachusetts. Our parents seemed surprised by her desire to go so far from home, but I understood. She wasn't just going towards something, she was escaping. The night before Lisa left for college, Ethan made a show of being the supportive big brother in front of our parents, helping her load the car and giving advice about university life. Later, when our parents weren't around, he told her, "Don't bother coming back for holidays, no one will miss you anyway." I overheard this and finally lost my temper completely. I shoved Ethan against the wall and told him if he ever spoke to Lisa that way again, brother or not, he would regret it. It was the first time I had ever physically confronted him, and the shock on his face was almost worth the aftermath, my parents threatening to kick me out of the house for attacking Ethan. Lisa left for college the next day, and the difference in her was immediate. Even through video calls, I could see the weight lifting from her shoulders. She flourished at university, making real friends who valued her intelligence and kindness. She joined clubs, took leadership positions, and even started dating, something she'd never done in high school due to her anxiety and poor self-image. Meanwhile, Ethan's golden path wasn't working out as planned. His college football career fizzled after a knee injury, and he dropped out after 3 semesters. He moved back home, where our parents welcomed him with open arms and zero expectations. They paid his bills, made excuses for his lack of direction, and continued to treat him like the sun their world revolved around. I had moved out by then, finding my own apartment and a job in marketing that I enjoyed. I visited our parents occasionally, but found the dynamic at home increasingly intolerable. Every visit seemed to revolve around Ethan's needs and problems, with my parents seeking my support for whatever new plan they had to help him get on his feet. When I suggested that perhaps they were enabling his dependence, my father accused me of being jealous. "Your brother has had some setbacks," he said. "As family, we need to support him. You've always had an issue with him, Campbell, and frankly, it's getting old." It was gaslighting, pure and simple, but I didn't have the vocabulary for it then. I just knew that my perception of reality seemed completely at odds with my parents, and it made me question my own judgment. It wasn't until years later, after lots of therapy, that I understood the toxic family system I'd grown up in. Through it all, Lisa thrived in her new environment, free from Ethan's torment and our parents' dismissal. She graduated with honors, went on to get her master's degree, and secured a fantastic job in her field. We stayed close, talking almost daily, our bond strengthened by our shared experience and mutual support. As adults, we both recognized the dysfunction of our family, but Lisa had done the harder work of building a completely new life away from all of it. I couldn't have been more proud of her transformation, even as I felt increasing resentment toward our parents for their blindness to the harm they had allowed, and in many ways, encouraged throughout our childhood. That resentment would come to a head in ways none of us could have anticipated when Lisa finally found the love and support she deserved in someone outside our toxic family circle. Lisa met James during her second year of graduate school. She called me the night after their first date, and I could hear something in her voice I hadn't heard before, a mixture of excitement and calm confidence. "He listens when I talk, Campbell," she said, the wonder evident in her tone. "Like, really listens." Over the next few months, I heard all about James, how he was pursuing his doctorate in environmental science, how he made her laugh, how he remembered small details about things she mentioned in passing. But most importantly, I heard how respected she felt in his presence. I told him about Ethan and Mom and Dad, Lisa confided during one of our weekly calls. He didn't try to make excuses for them or tell me I was exaggerating. He just held my hand and said he was sorry I went through that. That simple validation meant everything to Lisa. After years of having her experiences minimized and her feelings dismissed, having someone believe her without question was revolutionary. Their relationship progressed naturally. James introduced Lisa to his family, who embraced her immediately. His parents, Robert and Diana, treated Lisa with warmth and genuine interest. Diana would call just to check in on her, and Robert helped her navigate a challenging situation at work, offering advice without taking over. These small acts of normal family support were foreign to Lisa, and she soaked them up like a plant finally getting water after a drought. As Lisa's relationship with James deepened, her contact with our parents became increasingly infrequent. She would call on birthdays and major holidays, but the conversations were brief and superficial. With Ethan, she maintained even less contact, an occasional text message or brief interaction, when she couldn't avoid it during her rare visits home. By contrast, her relationship with me grew stronger. I visited her several times a year, getting to know James and witnessing firsthand how good they were together. James had a steadiness about him that balanced Lisa's more anxious tendencies, and he took genuine joy in her successes. When Lisa was offered a promotion that would require additional travel, James rearranged his own schedule to make sure they'd still have quality time together. He celebrated her achievements without a hint of the jealousy or resentment we'd grown up with from Ethan. 3 years into their relationship, James proposed. It was thoughtful and personal. He took Lisa back to the university garden, where they'd had their first date, and had arranged for her favorite string quartet to be playing. When she called to tell me, she was crying happy tears. "I never thought I could have this, Campbell," she said. "I never thought I deserved someone who treats me like I matter." That statement broke my heart and filled it with joy simultaneously. I was thrilled she had found such happiness, but furious that our family had damaged her so badly that she had doubted her worthiness of basic love and respect. Lisa asked me to be her man of honor instead of having a traditional maid of honor, and I agreed without hesitation. When she tentatively brought up the news to our parents during a phone call, their reaction was lukewarm at best. "Well, that's nice, honey," our mother said. "Have you set a date? We'll need to check Ethan's schedule to make sure he can get time off work." Even in this moment, when the conversation should have been focused on Lisa's happiness, our mother's first thought was of Ethan. It was such a familiar pattern that Lisa didn't even react visibly, though later she told me it had stung. The initial wedding planning conversations between Lisa and our parents were strained. Every suggestion Lisa made was questioned or countered with something that would better suit Ethan or our parents' preferences. When Lisa mentioned having the wedding near her current home in Massachusetts, our mother immediately objected. "But that's so far for everyone to travel," she complained. "Why not have it here, where the whole family can attend easily?" By whole family, she meant Ethan, who had finally found a job but was always too busy to travel for any event related to Lisa or me. The fact that James's entire family and all of Lisa's friends would have to travel if the wedding were held in Seattle didn't seem to factor into our mother's thinking. As the planning continued, Lisa confided in me about her growing anxiety regarding the wedding. "I should be excited, Campbell, but every time I talk to Mom, I feel like I'm 16 again, small and unimportant and always wrong." She also expressed specific concerns about Ethan's involvement. "You know how he is. He'll find some way to make the day about him, or worse, he'll do something to deliberately ruin it. Remember what he did to my science project? My graduation party? Every important event in my life he's had access to, he's found a way to tarnish." I couldn't argue with her logic. Ethan had a track record of sabotaging Lisa's moments of success and happiness, and our parents had a track record of enabling his behavior and blaming Lisa for the fallout. As we talked through various scenarios, I could see Lisa becoming more stressed rather than more excited about her wedding day. "This should be one of the happiest times of my life," she said during a particularly tearful call. "Instead, I'm having nightmares about Ethan making a scene or giving a terrible speech or spilling something on my dress by accident." James noticed Lisa's increasing anxiety as well. One evening, he gently suggested something that would prove to be the catalyst for the family reckoning that had been brewing for decades. "Lisa," he said, "it's our wedding. We don't have to invite anyone who makes you feel unsafe or unhappy, not even family." That simple statement, the permission to prioritize her well-being over family obligation, was revolutionary to Lisa. She called me immediately after that conversation, her voice a mixture of fear and hope. "Can I really not invite Ethan to my wedding?" she asked, as if the idea was both liberating and terrifying. "Is that allowed?" "Of course it's allowed," I assured her. "It's your wedding. You and James get to decide who shares in your day." There was a long silence on the other end of the line before Lisa spoke again, her voice stronger now. "Then I don't want him there. I don't want to spend my wedding day waiting for the other shoe to drop. I don't want to be hypervigilant when I should be celebrating. I've spent my whole life catering to Ethan's feelings and dealing with the fallout of his actions. I don't want to do it on my wedding day." I fully supported her decision, though we both knew it would create a firestorm within the family. What we didn't anticipate was just how explosive that firestorm would be, or how it would ultimately redraw the boundaries of our family forever. Lisa and James spent weeks carefully creating their wedding invitation list. They decided on an intimate ceremony with about 70 guests, close friends, colleagues, James's large extended family, and select members of our smaller family. When the final list was complete, Ethan's name was conspicuously absent. Before sending out the invitations, Lisa knew she needed to have a conversation with our parents. She asked me to be present for moral support, and we arranged a video call on a Sunday evening. I could see the tension in Lisa's posture as our parents' faces appeared on the screen, but her voice was steady when she spoke. "Mom, Dad, I wanted to talk to you about the wedding invitations before they go out next week," she began. "James and I have decided to keep the wedding small and intimate, with only people who have been supportive and positive presences in our lives." Our mother nodded, not yet realizing what was coming. "That makes sense, sweetie. Small weddings are becoming more popular now, and they're certainly less expensive." Lisa took a deep breath. "I'm glad you understand." That's why, after a lot of thought and discussion with James and with Campbell, I've decided not to invite Ethan to the wedding. The silence that followed was deafening. Our father's face flushed red almost immediately, while our mother's expression froze in a mask of disbelief. "What do you mean, not invite your brother?" our father finally sputtered. "That's ridiculous. Of course Ethan will be at your wedding. He's your brother." Lisa remained calm, though I could see her hands trembling below the camera's view. "Yes, he's my brother, but he's also someone who has consistently hurt me throughout my life. Someone who takes joy in ruining important moments for me. I don't want to spend my wedding day worried about what he might do or say to spoil it." Our mother's shock had transformed into indignation. "Lisa, I can't believe you would even consider excluding your brother from your wedding. Whatever childhood squabbles you two had are in the past. You need to grow up and move forward." The dismissal of Lisa's experiences as childhood squabbles was so typical and so infuriating that I couldn't stay silent any longer. "They weren't squabbles, Mom," I interjected. "Ethan bullied Lisa relentlessly for years, and you and Dad never did anything to stop it. You made excuses for him and blamed Lisa for being too sensitive. She has every right not to want him at her wedding." Our father pointed his finger at the screen, his face growing even redder. "You stay out of this, Campbell. You've always encouraged Lisa's victim mentality. Ethan is family, and family sticks together, no matter what." Lisa's voice was quieter now, but even more determined. "I'm not a victim, Dad. I'm someone who's setting healthy boundaries. I've spent years in therapy working through the damage done to me and our family. This isn't about punishment or revenge. It's about creating a safe, joyful environment for one of the most important days of my life." Our mother's tone turned pleading. "Lisa, honey, think about what you're doing. Think about how hurt Ethan will be. He's been so excited about your wedding." This was news to both Lisa and me, considering Ethan had never once asked Lisa about her engagement or wedding plans in the months since the announcement. "I doubt that very much, Mom," Lisa replied. "Ethan has shown zero interest in my engagement. He didn't even call to congratulate me." "Because you've made him feel unwelcome," our mother countered. "You moved across the country and barely come home. How is he supposed to be close to you when you've put so much distance between you?" The conversation was following the same circular pattern that had defined our family dynamics for decades. Lisa expresses a legitimate concern. Our parents dismiss it and somehow make it Lisa's fault. Lisa is expected to accommodate Ethan regardless of how he treats her. After 30 minutes of increasingly heated discussion, our father finally delivered the ultimatum that would change everything. "Listen to me carefully, Lisa," he said, his voice cold and controlled. "If your brother's not invited, we're not coming either. It's as simple as that. I will not participate in this family division you're creating." Lisa visibly flinched at his words, but then something shifted in her expression. A calmness settled over her features, and she sat up straighter. "I'm sorry you feel that way, Dad," she said. "The invitation was extended to you and Mom because I hoped you would want to share in my happiness. But if you're making your attendance conditional on my accepting someone who has hurt me repeatedly, then I accept your decision not to come." Our mother gasped. "Lisa! You can't be serious! We're your parents! You can't get married without us there!" "I can, Mom. I would prefer to have you there, but not at the cost of my peace of mind and emotional safety. The choice is yours, not mine. You're choosing Ethan over me, just like you always have." The call devolved further after that, with our parents alternating between guilt trips, appeals to family loyalty, and outright anger. Through it all, Lisa remained firm, and I stayed by her side, occasionally interjecting to support her points but mostly letting her speak for herself, something she'd never really been allowed to do in our family. When our father finally said, "We raised you better than this, Lisa. This selfish behavior is not how we brought you up," something in Lisa snapped. "No, Dad. You raised me to believe my feelings didn't matter. You raised me to accept being bullied by my own brother. You raised me to think I was always wrong and Ethan was always right. Well, I've unlearned those lessons, and it was the hardest work I've ever done. This isn't selfish, it's self-preservation." She ended the call shortly after, and I immediately called her on a separate line to check in. She was shaking but resolute. "I knew they would be upset," she said, "but I didn't expect them to choose not to come. Even after everything, I thought they'd at least want to be at my wedding." "They might come around," I offered, not really believing it myself. "Maybe," Lisa replied, "but I'm not changing my mind about Ethan. Not this time. This is too important." The fallout was immediate and far-reaching. Within hours, our parents had called every member of the extended family, telling their version of events that Lisa was being childish and vindictive, excluding her brother out of spite, and breaking their parents' hearts in the process. The family began taking sides, with most following our parents' lead without questioning the deeper context. A few, however, reached out to Lisa directly to hear her side. Our Aunt Susan, our mother's sister who had always seemed to see through Ethan's charm, called Lisa the next day. "I want you to know that I support your decision," she told Lisa. "I've watched how Ethan treated you over the years, and how your parents enabled it. You deserve a wedding day free from that anxiety." Those few voices of support meant the world to Lisa, but the family was undeniably fracturing. The unified front our parents had always presented was now working against them, as their insistence on an all-or-nothing approach forced relatives to choose sides in a way they never had before. Through it all, Lisa stood her ground with a strength I'd always known she possessed but had rarely been able to exercise within our family structure. The little sister I had tried so hard to protect had grown into a woman fully capable of protecting herself, and I couldn't have been prouder. The weeks following Lisa's announcement were chaotic. Our parents moved from shock to anger to strategic manipulation with breathtaking speed. They enlisted aunts, uncles, cousins, anyone who would listen to pressure Lisa into changing her mind. Our father's sister called Lisa in tears, begging her to fix this rift for the good of the family. Our maternal grandmother, who had always doted on Ethan, sent a 5-page handwritten letter explaining Lisa's Christian duty to forgive her brother and include him in this sacred occasion. Even distant cousins we barely knew were suddenly reaching out through social media with unsolicited opinions. Through it all, Lisa remained firm, though I could see the toll it was taking. "I feel like I'm going crazy sometimes," she confessed during one of our late-night calls. "So many people are telling me I'm wrong, that I start to doubt myself." "That's exactly what they want," I reminded her. "It's the same gaslighting we grew up with. Trust your instincts, Lisa. You know what you've experienced." Ethan's reaction when he finally learned he wasn't invited was explosive. Apparently, our parents had delayed telling him, hoping they could pressure Lisa into changing her mind first. When they finally did tell him, his rage was immediate and vicious. He called Lisa at 2 a.m, screaming so loudly that James woke up and could hear every word without the phone being on speaker. He called her selfish, ungrateful, dramatic, and a list of obscenities I won't repeat. He threatened to show up anyway and make her regret trying to exclude him. Lisa ended the call and immediately blocked his number, but Ethan wasn't deterred. He began texting me, demanding that I talk some sense into her, and threatening that there would be consequences if I didn't. When I defended Lisa's decision, he turned on me as well, saying I had always been jealous of him and had poisoned Lisa against him. The harassment continued across platforms. Ethan created fake social media accounts after Lisa blocked his known ones. He posted publicly about the situation, painting himself as the victim of an unreasonable sister. He even contacted some of Lisa's friends, spinning a story about Lisa having mental health issues that were causing her to lash out at her family. After 2 weeks of this, I'd had enough. I drove to Ethan's apartment, determined to put an end to his harassment campaign. When he opened the door, his smirk faded as he registered the anger on my face. "This stops now," I told him, keeping my voice low and controlled. "No more calls, no more texts, no more fake accounts, no more contacting her friends. You're not invited to the wedding because of exactly this kind of behavior. You can't stand when Lisa is happy or successful, and you go out of your way to ruin it for her." Ethan tried to interrupt, but I continued. "I'm not finished. If you continue to harass Lisa in any way, we will file for a restraining order. And I will personally make sure everyone knows exactly why you weren't invited to the wedding, not the victim story you've been spreading, but the truth about how you've treated Lisa for the past 19 years. His face contorted with rage. "You always take her side. You always act like she's so perfect, and I'm the bad guy. Our parents see through both of you. Our parents are in denial, I replied. They've spent so long making excuses for you that they can't admit the truth that they enabled you to become the person you are. But Lisa and I see you clearly, and we're done pretending. I left feeling both drained and relieved. Ethan's harassment did decrease after that confrontation, though it didn't stop entirely. He switched tactics, becoming the wounded victim in our parents' narrative of family betrayal. Meanwhile, Lisa was dealing with the emotional aftermath of standing up to our family for perhaps the first time in her life. Despite the stress, I noticed a new confidence in her voice during our calls. It's strange, she told me. I feel terrible about Mom and Dad not coming, but also lighter somehow. Like I've been carrying this weight of trying to please them and manage Ethan's behavior my whole life, and now I've set it down. James and his family stepped up in beautiful ways during this difficult time. His parents called Lisa regularly just to check in. His sisters included her in their monthly book club and girls' nights. His extended family sent cards and small gifts, making sure she knew she was already considered part of their family. James's aunt sent me his grandmother's handkerchief as my something old for the wedding, Lisa told me, her voice thick with emotion. She said she'd been saving it for her granddaughter's wedding, but since she only had grandsons, she wanted me to have it. Can you believe that? She's known me for less than 2 years, and she treats me with more consideration than our parents ever have. As Lisa's wedding day approached, the full extent of our family's dysfunction became increasingly apparent. Conversations with extended family revealed patterns and secrets I had never known about our father's own difficult relationship with his parents, our mother's tendency to play favorites with her siblings' children as well, the way family gatherings had always revolved around Ethan's schedule and preferences. Your cousin Thomas told me that when he was a kid, he hated coming to our house for holidays, Lisa said during one of our planning calls. He said everyone was always walking on eggshells around Ethan, and if Ethan was in a bad mood, the whole day was ruined. These revelations were both validating and heartbreaking. On one hand, it confirmed that Lisa and I hadn't imagined or exaggerated the toxic dynamic. On the other hand, it meant that many people had recognized the problem over the years but had said nothing, allowing the pattern to continue unchallenged. 1 month before the wedding, our mother made a last-ditch effort to change Lisa's mind. She called on a Sunday afternoon, her voice sugary sweet. Lisa, darling, I've been thinking about the wedding, and I have a compromise to suggest. What if Ethan comes just to the ceremony? He wouldn't stay for the reception, so you wouldn't have to worry about him making a scene or giving a speech. That way we can all be there for your special moment, and then you can celebrate however you want afterward. The old Lisa might have capitulated to keep the peace. The new Lisa didn't hesitate. No, Mom, that doesn't work for me. The ceremony is the most important part of the day, and I want to be fully present for it, not worried about Ethan's behavior or reaction. My decision hasn't changed. Our mother's sweet tone vanished instantly. You're being completely unreasonable. After everything your father and I have done for you, this is how you repay us? By breaking up the family over some perceived slights from your childhood? They weren't perceived, Mom. They were real. And they weren't just in childhood. Ethan called me 2 weeks ago and threatened me. But even if you never acknowledge that, my decision stands. You and Dad are welcome to come without Ethan. If you choose not to, I'll miss you, but I understand that's your choice. That evening, our father called me, clearly assuming I could be more easily swayed than Lisa. You need to fix this, Campbell, he said without preamble. Talk some sense into your sister. This family rift is destroying your mother. I took a deep breath. Dad, I support Lisa's decision 100%. Ethan has been awful to her for years, and you and Mom have enabled it. If anyone needs to fix anything, it's you three. So you're against us too, he said, his voice hard, after everything we've done for you both. I'm not against you, Dad. I'm for Lisa having the wedding day she deserves without anxiety or drama. I'm for acknowledging the truth of our family dynamic, instead of pretending everything is fine when it isn't. I'm for actual healing, not just sweeping things under the rug again. The conversation ended shortly after, with my father declaring that I had always been a disappointment and that he had expected better from me as the more rational one. That night, I called Lisa to update her on the conversation. They're still not coming, are they? She asked, a note of sadness in her voice despite her resolve. I don't think so, I answered honestly. They've dug in their heels on this one. Lisa sighed. I know I made the right decision, but it still hurts. I always had this tiny hope that someday they would see me, really see me, and choose me for once. Silly, right? Not silly, I assured her. Human. We all want our parents' love and approval, even when they've shown they're incapable of giving it unconditionally. As the wedding approached, it became clear that our parents were indeed going to follow through on their ultimatum. They returned their RSVP card marked "Regretfully Decline," with no personal note or explanation. Ethan, meanwhile, continued his campaign of portraying himself as the victim to anyone who would listen, including posting passive-aggressive comments on social media whenever Lisa or James shared wedding updates. The family we had known was irreparably changed. But from the ashes of that relationship, I watched as Lisa built something new and healthier, a circle of chosen family made up of friends who truly valued her, James's wonderfully supportive family, the few relatives from our side who had chosen to stand with her, and me. It wasn't the family she was born into, but it was the family she deserved. The morning of Lisa's wedding dawned clear and bright, a perfect New England autumn day with crisp air and foliage at its peak color. I arrived at the venue early to help with last-minute arrangements and to be there for Lisa during her preparations. The absence of our parents was palpable in small moments. When the wedding planner asked who would be walking Lisa down the aisle, when the photographer inquired about family combinations for formal portraits. Each time, there was a brief pause, a flicker of sadness across Lisa's face, and then a redirection to the adjusted plans we had made. Lisa had asked our Aunt Susan to accompany her down the aisle. Susan, who had stood by Lisa through the family conflict, had flown in from Seattle despite pressure from our parents not to attend. She brought with her our grandmother's pearl earrings that had been promised to Lisa years ago, sneaking them out of our mother's jewelry box where they had been kept. "Your grandmother would have wanted you to have these today," Susan told Lisa as she helped her put them on. "She always said you reminded her of herself, quiet on the outside, but strong as steel within." James's family had stepped up beautifully to fill the void left by our parents. His mother Diana helped Lisa with her dress and veil, offering the motherly support that should have been our mother's role. His father Robert checked in regularly, bringing coffee and making sure everything was running smoothly. His 3 sisters surrounded Lisa like a protective circle, keeping her laughing and distracted from the absences. As the guests began to arrive, I was surprised to see several faces from our extended family cousins, a few aunts and uncles, even our grandfather who rarely traveled anymore due to his health. They had all chosen to come despite knowing our parents wouldn't be there, a silent but powerful statement of support for Lisa. Lisa was getting her final touches of makeup applied when our cousin Rachel knocked on the door of the bridal suite. "There's someone here you might want to see," she said with a small smile. "Your old neighbor, Mrs. Wilson drove all the way from New Hampshire. She says she practically watched you grow up and couldn't miss your wedding." Mrs. Wilson had lived next door to us throughout our childhood. She had been the one adult besides me who seemed to see through Ethan's facade, often inviting Lisa over for cookies and quiet conversation when things were tense at our house. She was in her 70s now and had moved away years ago to be closer to her own children. When Lisa went out to greet her, Mrs. Wilson hugged her tightly. "I always knew you'd grow into your strength, dear one," she said. "I'm so proud of the woman you've become." That moment seemed to shift something for Lisa. The sadness that had lingered in her eyes all morning faded, replaced by a calm certainty. She wasn't alone. She had always been seen and valued by people who mattered, even when our parents had failed to do so. As the ceremony time approached, I took my place as her man of honor, standing where she could see me as she walked down the aisle. When the music began and Lisa appeared at the entrance on Aunt Susan's arm, a collective murmur went through the gathering. She was radiant, not just beautiful in her dress, but glowing with a confidence and joy that transformed her. James's reaction was everything a sister could hope for. His eyes filled with tears the moment he saw her, and the love on his face was so transparent it made my own eyes well up. This was what Lisa deserved: pure, unconditional love from someone who saw her completely and cherished what he saw. The ceremony itself was perfect in its simplicity and sincerity. Lisa and James had written their own vows, and there wasn't a dry eye in the venue when Lisa promised to create with you the kind of family where everyone feels seen, heard, and valued, the family we both deserve. During my toast at the reception, I couldn't help but address the journey that had brought us to this day. For those who know Lisa's story, our story, you understand what an extraordinary woman she is. Her capacity for joy despite difficulty, her compassion despite having been shown too little of it, and her courage to break cycles instead of perpetuating them make her not just a wonderful sister but an inspiration. I raised my glass to the couple. James, you are the partner. Lisa has always deserved someone who recognizes her worth and reflects it back to her daily. Lisa, I've watched you grow from a girl who tried to make herself smaller to avoid conflict into a woman strong enough to stand for her own worth and happiness. I couldn't be prouder to be your brother. The reception was filled with laughter, dancing, and the kind of relaxed joy that only comes when everyone present genuinely wants to be there, celebrating out of love rather than obligation. I watched Lisa throughout the evening, noting how she never once checked her phone or glanced anxiously at the entrance, things she would certainly have done had Ethan been expected or invited. Instead, she was fully present, dancing with James's grandfather, laughing with her college friends, accepting congratulations from James's extended family, who had already embraced her as one of their own. She looked free in a way I had never seen before, unburdened by the weight of our family's dysfunction. Toward the end of the evening, as the celebration was winding down, my phone rang with our mother's number. I stepped outside to take the call, unsure what to expect. "Hello, Mom," I answered cautiously. "Is it over?" she asked without greeting. Her voice sounded strained, almost tearful. "The ceremony is over. Yes. The reception is still going on. And how is she?" There was something in her tone I couldn't quite identify. Regret, perhaps, or just curiosity. "She's happy, Mom. Genuinely happy. It's been a beautiful day." There was a long pause before she spoke again. I thought she might change her mind at the last minute. I thought she might call and ask us to come anyway. The self-centered nature of this statement struck me forcefully. Even now, our mother couldn't see beyond her own expectations to recognize Lisa's needs or feelings. "She made her decision clear from the beginning," I replied. "The only ones who could have changed the outcome were you and Dad, by choosing to support Lisa on her wedding day regardless of Ethan's feelings." "That's not fair, Campbell. We couldn't choose one child over another." "But that's exactly what you've always done, Mom. You've always chosen Ethan over Lisa, and over me too. The difference is that now Lisa is choosing herself, and I'm supporting her in that." My mother sighed heavily. "I didn't call to argue. I just wanted to know how it went. Will you tell Lisa that I was thinking of her today?" Something in me hardened at this half measure of concern. "No, Mom, I won't. If you want Lisa to know you're thinking of her, you should tell her yourself, but not today. Today is her day, and she deserves to enjoy every moment of it without being reminded of who chose not to be here." After ending the call, I rejoined the celebration, determined not to let the conversation affect the remainder of the evening. When Lisa asked who had called, I simply said, "No one important," and suggested we join the last dance of the night. Later, as Lisa and James prepared to leave for their hotel before departing on their honeymoon the next day, she hugged me tightly. "Thank you," she whispered, "for everything, for being the one constant good thing in my life, for believing me when no one else did, for standing with me when it would have been easier not to. Always," I promised her. "That's what real family does." As I watched their car pull away, decorated with streamers and "Just Married" painted on the back window, I felt an overwhelming mix of emotions: pride in Lisa's strength, joy for her happiness, but also a profound sense of loss for what our family could have been if our parents had made different choices. That night, in my hotel room, I made a decision of my own. I would no longer serve as the bridge between Lisa and our parents, trying to smooth things over or make excuses for their behavior. I had spent too many years in that role, and it had only enabled the dysfunction to continue. Going forward, I would maintain my own boundaries with our parents and Ethan, supporting Lisa's decision to do the same. When our mother called again the next morning, ostensibly to ask how the rest of the wedding had gone but quickly pivoting to suggesting ways Lisa could make things right with Ethan now that the wedding was over, I was prepared. "Mom," I said firmly, "the problem has never been Lisa's unwillingness to reconcile. The problem is that you, Dad, and Ethan refuse to acknowledge the harm that's been done or take responsibility for your parts in it. Until that changes, Lisa and I both need some distance." "So now you're cutting us off too?" she asked incredulously. "I'm setting boundaries," I corrected. "I'm willing to have a relationship with you and Dad, but not one where you expect me to pressure Lisa or where you pretend that your behavior and Ethan's haven't been harmful. I love you, Mom, but I won't participate in the denial anymore." The silence that followed told me everything I needed to know about how ready our parents were to face the truth. Not very. But for the first time in my life, that was their problem to solve, not mine or Lisa's. 6 months after Lisa and James's wedding, the new family landscape had settled into clear patterns. Our parents made sporadic attempts to reconnect, but always on their terms, never acknowledging the deeper issues or their role in creating them. Each attempt followed a similar script: initial pleasantries, followed by subtle, or not so subtle, pressure to move past this nonsense and re-establish the family as it had been before. Lisa maintained her boundaries with remarkable consistency. She would answer their calls occasionally but end conversations when they veered into manipulation or guilt-tripping. She sent cards for their birthdays and Christmas, but declined invitations to visit if Ethan would be present. It wasn't a complete cutting of ties, but rather a careful calibration of contact that protected her emotional well-being. Ethan, for his part, vacillated between playing the victim and lashing out. He would go weeks without mentioning Lisa, then suddenly post passive-aggressive comments on social media or send accusatory texts when something triggered his resentment. He never once acknowledged his behavior or offered a genuine apology, confirming for both Lisa and me that her decision to exclude him from her wedding had been the right one. The most profound changes, however, were in Lisa herself. Free from the constant anxiety of managing Ethan's behavior and our parents' expectations, she blossomed in ways I hadn't anticipated. She and James bought their first home, a charming colonial with a garden that Lisa threw herself into designing. She received a significant promotion at work, taking on a leadership role she might have shied away from previously. Most tellingly, she started volunteering as a mentor for teenage girls from difficult family situations, using her own experiences to help others navigate similar challenges. "I never imagined I could feel this settled," she told me during one of our weekly video calls. "It's like I've been holding my breath for years without realizing it, and now I can finally breathe deeply." My own journey paralleled Lisa's in many ways. I had always thought of myself as the strong one, the protector who had escaped the worst of our family's dysfunction. The events surrounding Lisa's wedding forced me to recognize how much I too had been shaped by the toxic patterns: my tendency to play peacemaker, to minimize my own needs, to take responsibility for others' emotions. With the help of my therapist, I began establishing healthier patterns in all my relationships. I reconnected with friends I had neglected while focusing on family drama. I started dating someone who respected my boundaries and communicated openly, a refreshing change from my previous relationships that had often replicated aspects of my family dynamic. The most unexpected development was the strengthening of relationships with extended family members who had chosen to attend Lisa's wedding despite our parents' disapproval. My Aunt Susan became a regular presence in both our lives, calling weekly and visiting when she could. Several cousins who had witnessed our family's dysfunction over the years reached out to share their own perspectives and to offer support. "I always felt uncomfortable with how your parents treated you and Lisa," my cousin David told me over dinner during his business trip to my city. "But as kids, what could we do? Now that we're adults, though, I want you both to know you have family who see you and value you." These reconnections healed something in me I hadn't realized was broken. The belief that there was something fundamentally wrong with Lisa and me that made us unworthy of our parents' equal love and protection. Hearing from multiple sources that others had seen the imbalance and recognized it as wrong was powerfully validating. Alongside our blood relatives, Lisa and I both cultivated chosen families of friends who provided the unconditional support we had lacked growing up. My circle included colleagues who had become close friends, my running group who checked in on me regularly, and neighbors who included me in holiday celebrations. Lisa had her work friends, her volunteer community, and of course, James's large and loving family who continued to embrace her fully. About 8 months after the wedding, our father called me out of the blue on a Tuesday evening. His voice sounded older, more subdued than I was used to hearing. "Your mother and I have been doing some thinking," he began awkwardly, "about Lisa's wedding and everything that happened before it." I remained silent, waiting to see where this was going before responding. "We miss you both," he continued, "and we're willing to discuss things if that would help bring the family back together." "What specifically are you willing to discuss, Dad?" I asked carefully. He hesitated. "Whatever you and Lisa feel we need to discuss. Within reason, of course. Including your favoritism toward Ethan? Including the ways you dismissed and minimized his bullying behavior toward Lisa for years? Including your decision to miss your daughter's wedding rather than come without him?" My father's sigh was heavy. "Campbell, we're trying here. Can't you meet us halfway?" "That's just it, Dad. There is no halfway when it comes to acknowledging harm. Either you recognize what happened and take responsibility for your part in it, or you don't. Lisa and I aren't asking for apologies just so we can move on and pretend everything's fine now. We're asking for genuine understanding and change." "And what about Ethan?" my father asked, a defensive note creeping back into his voice. Does he get a chance to make amends too? Of course, I replied. If he can acknowledge his behavior and show that he's changed, but based on his actions since the wedding, I don't see evidence of that happening anytime soon. The conversation ended inconclusively, but it marked a shift the first time our father had indicated even a willingness to discuss the deeper issues. Whether it would lead to meaningful change remained to be seen, but I no longer hinged my happiness or Lisa's on that outcome. The greatest lesson from this whole experience was that true family, is defined by how people treat each other, not by blood ties or shared history alone. Lisa and I had spent years trying to earn the love and support that should have been given freely. We had contorted ourselves to fit into the roles assigned to us in our family's dysfunctional system. Breaking free from those patterns was painful but ultimately liberating. I used to think there was something wrong with me, Lisa reflected during a visit to my home a year after her wedding. Something that made me unlovable to our parents, at least compared to Ethan. Now I understand that it was never about my worth. It was about their limitations. And that's sad, but it's not my burden to carry anymore. That sentiment perfectly captured the peace we had both found. The loss of the relationship we had wanted with our parents was real and painful, but it no longer defined us. We had built lives filled with genuine connections, mutual respect, and joy, the very things that had been missing from our family of origin. For anyone listening who might be struggling with similar family dynamics, I want you to know that your worth is not determined by how your family treats you. Setting boundaries is not selfish. It's necessary for your well-being. And sometimes, the bravest, most loving thing you can do for yourself is to step away from relationships that consistently harm you, even when those relationships are with family. Have you ever had to set difficult boundaries with family members? How did it affect your life and well-being? Share your experiences in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe if this story resonated with you. Your story matters too, and you deserve to be heard. Thank you for listening, and remember, you are worthy of relationships that bring peace and joy to your life, not constant stress and pain.